He dropped a rare black card on a rainy New York night. Two 5-year-old girls found it hungry, scared, but honest. They took only bread money and left a note. When a lonely billionaire read those words, everything he thought mattered began to collapse. And heal his heart forever changed inside. Rowan Kincaid woke before his alarm. The city below his penthouse was still half asleep, wrapped in a thin gray mist that softened the sharp edges of New York's skyline. From the 55th floor, everything looked smaller, quieter, manageable. That was why Rowan had chosen this height to stay above the noise, above the mess, above people. He stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, hands in the pockets of his tailored sleepwear, staring through floor-to-ceiling glass. At 31, Rowan was one of the youngest billionaires in the country. His name appeared on magazine covers, business journals, buildings. He had everything that could be bought, and almost nothing that could be felt. Behind him, the apartment was immaculate. Too immaculate. No photographs, no personal clutter. A dining table built for 12 sat untouched except for one place setting. One chair slightly pulled back. Always the same one. His assistant's voice echoed gently from the speaker system. "Good morning, Mr. Kincaid. Your schedule has been updated." Rowan didn't answer right away. He watched a single light flicker on in a distant apartment across the river. Somewhere, someone was waking up to a life that mattered to someone else. Board meeting at 9, investor lunch at 12:30, charity gala tonight at 7. The voice continued, efficient and distant. "Fine," Rowan said at last. The word felt empty as it left his mouth. He walked past a wall-length mirror and paused. The man staring back at him looked successful. Sharp jaw, perfect posture, expensive calm. But the eyes were wrong. They looked tired. Not from work. From meaninglessness. Rowan turned away before the reflection could accuse him of anything. By 6:30 a.m., Rowan was running. The treadmill hummed softly beneath his feet, positioned to face the city. He ran fast, controlled, precise, just like every decision he made in life. His heart rate stayed within optimal range. His breathing was steady. He was going nowhere. "Breakfast is ready, sir," came a gentle voice behind him. Rowan slowed the treadmill and wiped sweat from his forehead. The housekeeper stood respectfully near the kitchen entrance, holding a folded towel. "Thank you, Mrs." Rowan hesitated. "Harris, sir," she said kindly without offense. "Right, Mrs. Harris." He forced a small smile. She had worked here for over a year, prepared his meals, kept his home spotless, and he still couldn't remember her name without being reminded. That realization settled heavily in his chest. He sat alone at the long dining table, scrolling through financial reports on his tablet, while untouched breakfast cooled in front of him. Numbers climbed. Profits grew. Markets responded exactly as predicted. None of it stirred anything inside him. His phone buzzed. A message from a public relations firm confirming the model assigned to accompany him to the gala. Perfect smile. Perfect dress. Perfect illusion of a personal life. Rowan locked the phone and pushed it aside. Across the room, the silence felt loud. He remembered his sister's voice during their last argument, how she'd accused him of caring more about control than people. That was 2 years ago. They hadn't spoken since. The private elevator carried him down in silence. In the underground garage, his driver waited beside the black luxury sedan. "Good morning, Mr. Kincaid." Rowan nodded automatically, then stopped. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. The driver blinked. "Elliot, sir." Rowan repeated it quietly, as if testing the weight of it. Elliot. He wondered when he'd stopped seeing names and started seeing roles. The charity gala was supposed to start in an hour. Rowan stood in his penthouse bedroom, dressed in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, staring at himself in the mirror. The man looking back was polished, impressive, untouchable, and deeply, unbearably alone. His phone buzzed again. Maris, the PR team, reminders, expectations. Rowan turned the phone face down. "I need air," he muttered. Without calling the driver, without notifying anyone, without security. Rowan Kincaid walked out of his building and into the city on foot. The night air was cool, alive. The sidewalk vibrated with movement, people laughing, arguing, hurrying past with lives that had nothing to do with him. No one looked twice at Rowan without the context of wealth. And for the first time in years, he felt invisible. 3 blocks later, hunger hit him, not the curated hunger of reservations and tasting menus, but something simple and physical, real. Then he smelled it. Warm bread, coffee, something human. On the corner stood a small bakery, its sign worn and uneven, Redmond's Bakery. Rowan hesitated. No valet, no reservations, no velvet rope, just a bell on the door. He pushed it open. Warmth wrapped around him instantly. A few people sat at small tables. A man behind the counter looked up and smiled, not because Rowan was important, but because he was a customer. "Evening," the man said. Rowan nodded, suddenly unsure of how to exist without status. "I'll have coffee and whatever sandwich you recommend." As he reached into his coat pocket to pay, the slim black card holder shifted. Rowan didn't notice. The bell chimed again as he left, and behind him on the damp sidewalk, something rare and powerful slipped quietly to the ground, unseen, unnoticed, waiting for the smallest hands to change everything. Redmond's Bakery was nothing like the places Rowan usually visited. There were no marble counters, no soft jazz curated by consultants, just wooden tables worn smooth by years of elbows, quiet conversations, and everyday lives. The air smelled like bread and coffee, and something else Rowan couldn't name, comfort maybe. The man behind the counter wiped his hands on a flour-dusted apron and smiled. "Evening. First time here." "Yes," Rowan answered, surprised by how normal his voice sounded. "I'm Theo," the man said. "Sit wherever you like." Rowan chose a corner table. The coffee arrived in a thick ceramic mug chipped at the rim. It was strong, honest, better than anything he'd had in years. Theo leaned on the counter, watching the shop the way someone watches a home. "Been running this place 30 years, he said with quiet pride. Rowan nodded. "It shows." They didn't talk about money, or business, or status. Theo didn't ask what Rowan did for a living. He asked if the sandwich was good. For once, Rowan didn't feel like he was performing. When it came time to pay, Rowan stood and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a slim black card holder, matte leather, barely marked. Inside rested an ultra-exclusive black card, the kind most people only saw in movies. Theo glanced at it, unimpressed. "That'll be $8.50. Rowan paid, tucked the card holder back into his pocket, and headed for the door. "Come back anytime," Theo said. Rowan paused, surprised by how much he meant it, when he replied, "I think I will." The bell chimed as he stepped outside. He didn't feel the card holder slide free, didn't hear it hit the sidewalk. The city swallowed the sound. 20 minutes later, the sidewalk belonged to someone else. 2 little girls walked hand in hand toward the bakery. Their steps careful, synchronized, as if they'd learned long ago that staying together mattered. Ivy Calder and June Calder, both 5 years old, moved with quiet purpose. Their coats were too big, their shoes were worn, but their grip on each other was firm. "We'll ask nicely," June whispered. Ivy nodded. "And we won't argue." They stopped near the curb when June pointed down. "Look." Something black lay on the pavement, slick with rain. Ivy crouched and picked it up gently. It felt heavier than it looked. Important. She opened it just enough to see inside. A black card. A name. Rowan Kincaid. June's eyes widened. "Is that—" Bad, Ivy swallowed. "I think it's very important." Tucked behind the card sleeve was a folded $20 bill. Just one. The girls looked at each other. June's stomach growled softly, an involuntary sound that embarrassed her. Ivy squeezed her hand tighter. "That could buy bread." June said, not as a demand, but a fact. Ivy stared at the card holder, her thoughts racing. She knew stealing was wrong. Their mom had been clear about that. But hunger didn't wait for perfect choices. We don't take the card, Ivy said finally. We don't touch it. June nodded quickly. Ivy pulled a crumpled piece of notebook paper from her pocket and a stubby pencil. She bent over the cardholder, tongue caught between her teeth as she wrote carefully. Each letter mattered. Each word was a promise. The note was simple. No excuses, no drama, just the truth. I'm sorry. We took one bill to buy bread. We were hungry. We will pay you back. Ivy and June. Ivy read it twice, then once more just to be sure. She folded it neatly and slid it into the cardholder, placing it above the card so it would be seen first. June watched, silent. Are you scared? She asked. Yes, Ivy answered honestly. But it's still right. They entered Redmond's bakery together. Theo looked up and smiled. Hey, girls. Ivy stepped forward, holding the cardholder with both hands like it was fragile. We found this outside, she said. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. It's not ours. Theo frowned slightly and opened it. He saw the black card. The name. Then the note. He read it once. Then again. His eyes softened in a way Ivy didn't expect. We took one bill, Ivy added quickly, pulling the 20 from her pocket. Just for bread. We wrote it down. Theo didn't scold, didn't sigh, didn't lecture. He knelt so he was eye level with them. Thank you for telling me, he said gently. That took courage. June relaxed just a little. Theo wrapped warm bread and slid it across the counter. You can pay this time, he said, because you wanted to. Ivy placed the bill down carefully. As the girls left, bread held close to their chests, Theo looked down at the cardholder again. At the name he recognized, and at the note written by hands small enough to remind him. Sometimes the biggest honesty comes from the smallest people. Rowan Kincaid realized something was wrong the moment he reached his penthouse. It wasn't panic. It wasn't fear. It was a pause, an absence. He hung his coat on the rack, loosened his tie, then reached into his pocket out of habit. His fingers brushed fabric. Nothing else. Rowan frowned and checked again, slower this time. Empty. The black cardholder was gone. For a brief second, irritation rose first. Security protocols, replacement procedures, calls to make, the inconvenience of it all. That reaction embarrassed him almost immediately. It wasn't the money. It was never the money. He sat down at the edge of his bed and tried to retrace the evening. The walk, the bakery, the warmth, the chipped mug. Theo's voice telling him to come back any time. That was the last place he remembered taking the card out. Rowan exhaled slowly and rubbed his face with both hands. He checked the clock. Almost 11. The bakery would be closed. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Rowan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the city's glow casting faint lines of light across the room. His phone buzzed with messages from his assistant about the charity gala he'd missed. For once, he didn't care. What unsettled him wasn't the loss of the card. It was the strange, persistent feeling that he'd dropped something more than plastic, something symbolic, something that didn't belong to him anymore. At dawn, Rowan made a decision. He canceled his morning meetings, ignored the calls, skipped the driver. For the first time in years, he dressed without an agenda. As the elevator descended, Rowan caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. He looked different and less polished, more awake. The city doors opened, and Rowan Kincaid stepped out, determined not just to recover a card, but to understand why losing it suddenly mattered so much. Redmond's bakery opened at 7 sharp. At 7:05, Rowan Kincaid was already standing inside, hands in his coat pockets, the familiar smell of bread filling his lungs. The bell above the door chimed softly, just as it had the night before. Theo looked up from behind the counter and smiled. "Morning," he said calmly. "You're back." Rowan nodded. "I think I left something here." Theo didn't ask questions. He reached under the counter and placed the slim black card holder gently on the surface between them. Relief washed over Rowan, but only briefly. He opened it. The black card was there, untouched. But something else was different. A folded piece of paper sat neatly on top. Rowan's brow furrowed. "What's this?" Theo's expression softened. "I'd suggest you read it first." Rowan unfolded the paper carefully. The handwriting was uneven, childlike. Each letter pressed hard, as if the writer had wanted the words to stay put. "I'm sorry. We took one bill to buy bread. We were hungry. We will pay you back." Ivy and June. Rowan read it once, then again. Something tightened in his chest, sharp and unexpected. He swallowed, suddenly aware of how quiet the bakery had become. "How old are they?" he asked, his voice lower than before. "5, Theo replied. "Both of them." Rowan closed his eyes for a brief moment. 5. Children young enough to believe that honesty mattered more than survival and brave enough to prove it. They could have taken everything, Rowan said quietly. "Yes," Theo agreed. "But they didn't." Rowan folded the note carefully and placed it back inside the card holder, treating it with more care than the card itself. "Are they safe?" he asked. Theo hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "They're managing. They stick together." Rowan nodded slowly. In that moment, the world he'd built, glass steel control, felt unbearably thin, and the words written by 2 small hands felt heavier than anything he'd ever owned. Rowan didn't leave the bakery right away. He stood there staring at the counter, the card holder, the folded note, as if moving too quickly might break something fragile. Theo busied himself with the morning crowd, giving Rowan the space he didn't know he needed. Finally, Rowan looked up. "Do you know where they go?" Theo shook his head gently. "Not exactly. They come by sometimes near closing, always together, always polite." Rowan reached into his wallet and pulled out several bills, setting them on the counter. "For food, clothes, whatever they need," he said, "if they come back." Theo looked at the money, then back at Rowan. "That's generous." "It's necessary," Rowan replied. He scribbled a phone number on a slip of paper. Not his assistant, not his office, his personal number. "If they show up," Rowan said, "please call me." Outside, the city was already awake, people rushing to work, taxis, honking, lives in motion. Rowan stepped into it with a strange calm he hadn't felt in years. For the next several days, Rowan did something radical. He looked, not from behind tinted windows, not from a distance. He walked. He asked gently. He listened. He visited community centers, spoke to shop owners, described 2 5-year-old girls who moved like they shared one shadow. Each unanswered question tightened the knot in his chest. At night, he returned to Redmond's bakery and waited, coffee cooling in front of him, eyes flicking to the door every time the bell rang. Nothing. Still, Rowan kept coming back. Because the search had become more than a responsibility. It had become the first thing in his life that felt like it mattered. And somewhere in the city, 2 little girls were holding on to warm bread. Unaware that a man who once believed he had everything was quietly rearranging his entire world to find them. 10 days passed. 10 mornings where Rowan Kincaid canceled meetings without explanation. 10 evenings where he returned to Redmond's bakery, ordered the same coffee, and sat at the same corner table, waiting. The note never left his pocket. He unfolded it more times than he cared to admit, tracing the uneven letters with his thumb, as if the paper might whisper something more if he listened hard enough. Theo noticed the change. "You're not the same man who walked in here the first night," the baker said quietly one evening. Rowan didn't look up. "I hope not." By day, Rowan walked the city with new eyes. He learned which streets felt safe and which ones carried quiet exhaustion. He spoke with community workers carefully, respectfully, never revealing names, never pushing. 2 girls, 1 woman asked thoughtfully at a neighborhood center, Same age, always together. Rowan's heart jumped. Yes. They come through sometimes, she said. Polite, smart. The older one talks like she's carrying more than 5 years. Rowan nodded. He already knew. Night after night, the bakery bell rang for other people. Office workers, couples, regulars. Not Ivy, not June. On the 10th night, Rowan finally left the bakery after closing. It was late. Almost 11. Rain had begun to fall, not heavy but steady, soaking the streets in a reflective sheen. Rowan dismissed the car again, choosing to walk. The city felt different at night. Quieter. More honest. As he passed a row of closed shops, something made him slow his pace. A movement. Under the awning of a darkened storefront, 2 small figures huddled close, sharing the narrow space between shadow and shelter. Rowan stopped. His heart didn't race. It held its breath. He stepped closer, careful not to startle them. Ivy, he said softly, as if saying her name too loudly might make her disappear. 2 faces lifted. Wide eyes, instant alertness. June moved half a step behind Ivy. Ivy stayed still, her body angled protectively. Yes, Ivy asked, cautious but steady. Rowan crouched, slowly keeping distance, his hands open. It's me, he said, from the card, from the bakery. The rain tapped gently around them, and for a long moment no one moved. Ivy studied Rowan the way adults studied contracts. Carefully, suspiciously, completely. You said you'd be at the bakery, she said. I was, Rowan replied. Every night. June peeked around Ivy's shoulder. He smells like coffee, she whispered. Rowan smiled faintly. I drink too much of it. That earned him nothing more than silence. The rain grew colder. June shivered. Without stepping closer, Rowan slowly removed his coat and held it out, not toward Ivy, but toward the empty space between them. You don't have to take it, he said. I just don't want you to be cold. Ivy hesitated. She looked at June's trembling hands. Then she reached out and took the coat, wrapping it around June first. Only then did she pull the edge around her own shoulders. Thank you, she said quietly. Rowan exhaled. I'm not here to take anything from you, he said. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. June frowned. Are you mad? No, Rowan answered without hesitation. I'm grateful. Ivy's brow furrowed. Most people don't like when you take their money. We didn't take the card, June added quickly. I know, Rowan said. You protected it. That word protected hung in the air. Ivy's voice softened despite herself. We didn't want it to get lost. Rowan nodded. You did the right thing. Silence again. This one heavier. Finally, Ivy asked the question that mattered most. Are you going to make us go somewhere? Rowan shook his head slowly. No, I won't make you do anything. You get to choose. June tilted her head. Even if we say no, especially then, Rowan said. The rain eased. Rowan glanced toward the bakery sign glowing faintly down the block. Theo's still inside. It's warm there. You don't have to stay. But if you want, we can just sit. Drink something hot. Ivy looked at June. June nodded once. We'll sit, Ivy said. But only a little. Rowan stood first and stepped back, giving them room to follow without pressure. As they walked, June whispered, He didn't grab us. Ivy squeezed her hand, I noticed. Behind them, the rain washed the street clean. Ahead of them, warm light waited. Redmond's bakery felt different that night. Quieter, softer. Theo locked the door after letting them in, flipping the sign to closed, not as a barrier, but as protection. The warmth wrapped around Ivy and June, immediately steam rising from their damp sleeves. Theo knelt in front of them. I'm glad you came back, he said. June smiled shyly. Ivy didn't, but she relaxed. Rowan sat at a nearby table, not crowding them. Theo poured hot soup into 2 small bowls and set them down carefully. No rush, Theo said. Eat if you want. They did. Slowly. Carefully. as if food might disappear if trusted too much. Rowan watched his chest tightening not from pity but from respect. These girls weren't broken, they were cautious, smart, alive. After a while, Rowan spoke. I want to help, but the right way. Ivy looked up. What's the right way? The way that keeps you together, Rowan said, with adults whose job is to protect kids, not hide them. June's spoon paused mid-air. Like, helpers, yes, Rowan answered. Kind ones. Theo nodded. I know someone, he added gently. Ivy considered this. We don't like surprises. No surprises, Rowan promised. A licensed social worker arrived, Dana Holloway, calm, warm, kneeling to eye level, explaining choices in simple words. No uniforms, no pressure. Dana said, you're safe right now. Tonight. Tomorrow. And we'll decide the rest together. Ivy looked at June. June nodded. We can try, Ivy said carefully. That night, Rowan prepared a guest room, not extravagant, just clean and gentle. Night lights. 2 beds close together. As Ivy tucked June in, she whispered. He waited. Yes, June murmured. That means something. Rowan stood in the doorway, not entering, honoring the boundary. Good night, he said. Ivy looked at him. You didn't have to come find us. Rowan answered honestly. I needed to. The door closed softly, and in the quiet that followed, Rowan Kincaid realized something terrifying and beautiful. He was no longer searching for 2 girls. He was protecting something fragile, and he would not let it fall again. Morning arrived quietly in Rowan Kincaid's apartment. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, softening the sharp lines of glass and steel that had once made the space feel more like a showroom than a home. For the first time since Rowan bought the penthouse, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt attentive, as if the walls themselves were listening. Ivy woke first. She sat up slowly, scanning the unfamiliar room with practiced caution. 2 beds, night lights still glowing faintly. June slept beside her, wrapped in clean blankets, her breathing deep and even. Safe for now. Ivy slid off the bed without making a sound and walked to the window. The city stretched endlessly below, too big, too loud, too complicated. But up here it felt distant, contained. She heard footsteps behind her and turned. Rowan stood in the doorway, not crossing the threshold. He was dressed simply, no suit, no watch, no armor. Good morning, he said softly. Ivy studied him. Adults often changed in the morning. They forgot promises made at night. You didn't leave, she said. No, Rowan replied. I said I wouldn't. June stirred, rubbing her eyes. Is it breakfast time? Rowan smiled. If you want it to be. In the kitchen, Mrs. Harris moved quietly, respecting space, asking permission before offering anything. Toast, fruit, warm milk. No questions. No staring. June relaxed almost immediately. Ivy didn't, but she watched closely, noting every detail, every tone of voice, every door. Later that morning, Dana Holloway arrived. She sat on the floor, not the couch, spoke slowly, explained things in pieces small enough to hold. This is temporary, Dana said gently. Rowan is helping while we figure out the safest legal plan. Ivy's fingers tightened around June's sleeve. We stay together, yes, Dana answered firmly. That part is not negotiable. Rowan nodded. I won't accept anything else. That afternoon, Ivy explored the apartment, carefully mapping it in her head. Exits, bathrooms, corners, safe spots. She found a small shelf already stocked with children's books, clearly new, clearly chosen with care. You bought these, Ivy said. I wasn't sure what you liked, Rowan admitted. So I bought options. June hugged a stuffed animal she'd discovered. This one looks friendly. Rowan chuckled. He's a dinosaur. His name is Rex. That evening, Ivy asked the question she'd been holding all day. Why are you doing this? Rowan paused, then answered honestly. Because your note reminded me of something I forgot, he said. That doing the right thing matters even when no one is watching. Ivy absorbed that quietly. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away. By the third day, routines began to form. Not strict ones, gentle ones. Breakfast together. Short walks outside with Dana present. Quiet afternoons. Evenings with Theo occasionally stopping by, checking in like a steady anchor from the girl's previous world. And beneath it all paperwork. Rowan sat in his home office with Gideon Marsh, his attorney files spread across the desk. Forms, assessments, background checks, everything clean, everything transparent. There's no shortcut here, Gideon said carefully. Temporary guardianship requires oversight, interviews, home evaluations, time. Then we do it right, Rowan replied. All of it. What about their biological parent, Gideon asked. Rowan stiffened. What about him? We have to look, Gideon said gently. Not to disrupt, but to understand. That evening, Rowan told Ivy the truth. Not all of it. Just enough. There may be someone related to you, he said carefully. We're trying to find answers. June looked confused. Ivy went still. Our dad, Ivy asked. Rowan nodded slowly. Possibly. Silence fell like a held breath. He didn't come back, Ivy said flatly. Rowan didn't argue. I know. Dana explained next steps, searching records, contacting agencies following law. No sudden removals, no surprises. June asked, will he be mad? No, Dana said, he won't be allowed to be. Ivy asked the harder question. What if he wants us back? Rowan met her gaze. Then the court will decide what's best for you, and your voice will matter. That night, Ivy didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, watching June breathe, replaying memories. She didn't fully understand fragments of a man who smelled like oil and coffee, a voice that had once been warm. In the living room, Rowan stared at the folded note again. He wondered if kindness could be enough, or if loving someone meant being prepared to lose them. The call came on a Wednesday morning. Dana's voice was calm but careful. We found him, she said. Rowan closed his eyes. Where his name is Silas Calder. He was released from custody 6 weeks ago. He's employed, compliant. He contacted social services looking for his daughters. The words landed slowly. He wants to see them. Dana continued. Not to take them immediately, to reconnect. Rowan's first instinct was fear, not anger. Fear. He looked through the glass wall at the city below and imagined Ivy's careful eyes, June's tentative trust. When he asked. With supervision, Dana said, and only if the girls agree. That afternoon, Rowan told them. Ivy didn't cry, she didn't shout, she just asked, do we have to? No, Rowan said. You don't, June whispered. I don't remember him. Ivy swallowed. I do. They sat together on the couch, Dana nearby space, respected. I want to ask him why, Ivy said finally, why he didn't come. Rowan nodded. That's fair. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. That night, Rowan found Ivy on the balcony, city lights reflected in her eyes. You're scared, she said. Yes, Rowan admitted. So am I, Ivy replied. They stood in silence, not as adult and child, but as two people facing uncertainty. You can still stay? Ivy asked. Yes, Rowan said firmly. No matter what happens next, I won't disappear. Ivy considered that. Then slowly she reached out and took his hand. Just for a moment. Not because she trusted everything, but because she trusted this. And somewhere in the city, a man named Silas Calder prepared himself to face the consequences of choices he could never undo, while another man prepared to protect two small lives that had already changed his forever. The day of the visit arrived with a sky too bright for how heavy Rowan felt inside. He didn't wear a suit. Not because he wanted to look humble, because he didn't want Ivy and June to think this was a courtroom disguised as a living room. He wore a plain sweater, soft shoes, and the kind of expression people wore when they were trying not to let fear lead the conversation. Dana Holloway arrived first. Calm, professional, kind. Remember, she told Rowan quietly in the kitchen, this is about their comfort. We keep the pace slow. If either girl wants to pause, we pause. If they want to end it, we end it. Rowan nodded, jaw tight. Understood. In the living room, Ivy sat upright on the couch, hands folded in her lap, like she'd practiced being composed. June sat close beside her feet, tucked under holding Rex, the dinosaur, tightly. She wasn't frightened in a dramatic way, just watchful, a child sensing that something important was happening and wanting to do it right. Rowan sat in a chair slightly to the side, not in front of them, not looming, leaving the center space open. A respectful triangle. Nothing forced. The doorbell rang. Dana stood, took a breath, and opened the door. Silas Calder stepped inside. He was 34, but the lines around his eyes made him look older. Clean clothes, simple shoes, a neat haircut that suggested effort. His hands were rough with honest work and nervousness. He stopped 2 steps into the apartment, as if he didn't deserve to go farther. Rowan watched him closely, not hunting for flaws, but searching for intention. Silas's gaze landed on the girls. His face changed in a way Rowan didn't expect, like someone who'd been holding his breath for months and didn't know how to start breathing again. Ivy, Silas said softly, voice trembling at the edges, June. June tightened her grip on the stuffed dinosaur. Ivy didn't move. Dana spoke gently, setting structure. Silas, thank you for coming. We'll keep this short at first. The girls can ask questions. You can answer honestly. No pressure. Silas nodded quickly. Of course, I understand. He looked at Ivy, then June, and didn't step closer. I'm your dad, he said, but he said it like a confession, not a claim. June blinked up at him, like, a dad at school, Silas swallowed. Yes, like that. Ivy's eyes didn't leave his face. Why didn't you come back? She asked, voice steady but small. Silas flinched, not from accusation, but from the weight of it. I made choices I regret, he said carefully. I thought I was fixing things the wrong way, and then I couldn't come home. I didn't want you to worry. Ivy's brows drew together. We worried anyway. A silence filled the room like a slow tide. Rowan felt it press against his ribs. He didn't interrupt. This was Ivy's moment, not his. Silas nodded, eyes glossy. You're right, I was wrong. I should have found a better way. I should have told the truth. June whispered. Did you forget us? Silas's face crumpled with pain, but he kept his voice gentle, adult, safe, emotionally responsible. Never, he said. I thought about you every day. Ivy lifted her chin. Then why didn't you find us? Silas took a shaky breath. I tried. I didn't know where you were. I asked for help as soon as I could. Dana watched Ivy closely. Ivy, do you want a break? She offered. Ivy shook her head. No. I want to understand. Silas reached into his pocket slowly and looked at Dana for permission before pulling out a small envelope. Dana nodded. Silas held it out not directly to the girls but to Dana, who checked it first and then placed it on the coffee table. Pictures, Silas said. From when you were little, if you want to see. June leaned forward slightly. Ivy hesitated. Then she nodded once, sharp, decisive. Dana opened the envelope and slid out a few old photos. A park, 2 toddlers with cotton candy, a woman with warm eyes holding the girls smiling. June's lips parted. Mom. Silas nodded, voice breaking gently, not dramatically. She loved you both so much. Ivy stared at the photo for a long time. Then she asked the question Rowan feared most. Are you taking us away? Silas looked at Rowan for a moment, then back to the girls. No, he said, clear and steady. Not right now. You're safe here. I'm not in a place to give you what you deserve yet. I'm trying to build that. Rowan felt something in his chest loosen just a fraction. The visit ended the way Dana planned, calmly, respectfully, with boundaries intact. As Silas stood to leave, he kept his distance and said quietly, "Thank you for letting me see you. I'll do this the right way. For you." Ivy didn't respond, but June did. She lifted her small hand and waved once uncertainly. Silas froze, then gave a gentle wave back, like it was the most precious thing he'd been given in years. And when the door closed, Rowan realized the real tension wasn't a battle. It was a bridge fragile, unfinished, and everyone in that room was deciding whether it could hold. That night, the penthouse felt smaller than it ever had. Not because the rooms had changed, but because the stakes had. Rowan walked through the living room, picking up small things left behind June's tiny socks near the couch. Ivy's drawing pencil on the coffee table, Rex the dinosaur perched upright, as if guarding the space. He'd never noticed how quickly a home could form out of simple evidence that someone belonged. In the girls' room, June slept first, curled on her side with the dinosaur tucked under her arm. Her face looked peaceful in the warm glow of the nightlight, like the day's questions had finally set her down gently. Ivy didn't sleep. She sat up in bed with a book open on her lap, but she wasn't reading. Her eyes were on the page without seeing it. Rowan lingered at the doorway, careful not to intrude. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly. Ivy shrugged in a way that tried to look casual and failed. "My brain is loud." Rowan stepped in only as far as the rug, keeping respectful distance. "Mine too." Ivy stared at the book, then closed it. "He didn't yell," she said suddenly. Rowan's throat tightened. "No." He said sorry, Ivy continued, voice controlled. "But saying sorry doesn't rewind time." Rowan nodded. "You're right." Ivy's eyes flicked to June, making sure she was still asleep. Then she asked quietly, "If the judge says we have to go, will you be mad?" Rowan felt a sharp ache in his chest. "I would never be mad at you," he said. "Not ever." Ivy swallowed. "I don't want to leave." Rowan sat on the floor, lowering himself so he wasn't towering over her. "I don't want you to leave either." "Then why does it feel like I'm standing on ice?" Ivy whispered. Rowan looked down at his hands. A billionaire's hands. Hands that had signed deals and moved markets and still felt helpless in the face of a child's fear. "Because we care," he said honestly. "And caring makes us feel everything." Ivy frowned. "I don't like feeling everything." Rowan gave a small, sad smile. "Me neither. But you taught me something with that note." Ivy's gaze sharpened. "What that integrity is stronger than panic," Rowan said. "You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. You still did the right thing." Ivy's cheeks warmed slightly. "I just didn't want to be the kind of person who takes everything." Rowan's voice softened. "And because of that, you changed me." A silence settled between them, not empty, but careful. Then Ivy asked the question she'd been holding behind all the others. "Are you a forever person?" Rowan blinked. "A what? A forever person?" Ivy repeated, as if explaining a rule of the universe. "Some grown-ups are here for a little while. Then they're gone. But some are forever." Rowan's eyes burned. He fought the instinct to look away. "I want to be," he said. "I'm trying to be." Ivy stared at him, searching for cracks the way children do when they've learned not to trust easily. "Trying sounds like maybe." Rowan nodded slowly. "Fair." He took a breath, chose words like vows. "Ivy," he said, "I can't control every decision the court makes, but I can control what I do. And what I do is this: I show up. I stay honest. I fight for what's best for you and June, without lying, without shortcuts, without putting you in the middle of adult conflict." Ivy's eyes glistened. She blinked hard, as if embarrassed by the softness. June stirred and murmured something sleepy. Ivy waited until June's breathing steadied again, then looked back at Rowan. "Pinky promise?" she asked. Rowan lifted his hand. Ivy extended her finger. their pinkies locked small to large like a fragile contract written in flesh instead of paper. "Pinky promise," Rowan whispered. When Rowan stood to leave, Ivy's voice stopped him at the doorway. "Rowan, yes. If I have to see my dad again, can I still be yours too?" Rowan's breath caught. He turned back and his answer came without hesitation. "You can have more than one kind of family." Ivy didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped slightly, as if something inside her unclenched. Outside the window, the city kept moving, indifferent, loud, relentless. Inside, a child tried to believe in permanence, and a man who once lived for numbers prepared to stand in court tomorrow and argue for something money could never buy. The right for two little girls to keep the life they'd finally begun to trust. Family court didn't look like the movies. It wasn't dramatic lighting or shouting lawyers. It was brighter, plainer. Almost clinical, the kind of place where life-changing decisions were made in rooms that felt too small to hold them. Rowan arrived early with Gideon Marsh and Dana Holloway. He didn't wear his most expensive suit. He wore a simple, sharp one that said respect, not power. Ivy and June sat beside Dana in child-appropriate seating, their feet dangling. Ivy held June's hand. June held Rex. Silas Calder arrived alone, wearing a clean button-down and a nervous expression that didn't fit his shoulders. He looked at the girls and offered a small wave. June waved back this time. Ivy didn't, but she didn't hide either. The judge, Honorable Miriam Sloane, entered with calm authority. Not cold, not sentimental. Focused. "We are here." Judge Sloane began to determine the provisional custody arrangement that best serves the welfare of Ivy and June Calder. Rowan felt his heartbeat in his throat. Gideon presented first the apartment assessment, the childcare plan, the school readiness evaluation, the health insurance enrollment, the documented routines, the involvement of a licensed social worker. No dramatics. Just stability on paper. Dana testified, next measured warm professional. "In my assessment," she said, "Rowan Kincaid has provided consistent care, appropriate boundaries, and a child-centered environment. The girls' attachment is protective and healthy. Their bond with one another is strong and should be preserved as a primary consideration." Then it was Silas's turn. Silas stood without an attorney. Not because he didn't care, because he didn't have resources like Rowan did. He cleared his throat, hands trembling slightly. "Your Honor," Silas began, "I'm not here to pretend I didn't fail." Rowan watched carefully. Silas didn't blame the system, didn't attack Rowan, didn't plead for sympathy. He chose honesty, quiet, steady. "I made choices that put me in custody," Silas said. "I can explain why, but I'm not here to excuse it. I'm here to take responsibility for what my daughters went through because of my absence." The judge listened without interrupting. Silas continued, voice thick but controlled. "I want to be their father in a real way again, but I'm not asking this court to remove them from stability they finally have. I'm rebuilding. I have work. I'm in a program. I'm saving for housing. I'm doing what I should have done in the first place, choosing the right path." Rowan felt a strange mixture of relief and grief. This wasn't a villain. This was a flawed man trying. The judge turned to Ivy. Judge Sloane said gently, "Do you understand why we're here today?" Ivy nodded once. "To decide where we live." "And where do you want to live right now?" the judge asked. With Rowan, Ivy answered, voice clear. "With June. Together." Judge Sloane nodded, then looked at June. June's voice was smaller. "I like the breakfast," she said, then added quickly, "and the stories." A soft ripple of warmth moved through the courtroom, nothing inappropriate, just human. The judge asked, "Do you want to see your father?" June looked at Ivy first. Ivy didn't speak. She just squeezed June's hand. June nodded. "Yes. But I want to come back home after." The word home hit Rowan like a wave. Judge Sloane folded her hands. "Thank you," she said. Then she spoke her ruling slowly, like she wanted everyone to truly hear it. This court recognizes the importance of biological connection, she said, eyes on Silas. And it recognizes the value of redemption when paired with responsibility. However, the guiding principle is, and must remain, the best interest of the children. Rowan held his breath. Therefore, Judge Sloan continued provisional custody of Ivy, and June Calder will be granted to Rowan Kincaid for a period of 6 months, subject to ongoing oversight by the assigned social worker. Rowan's shoulders nearly gave out with relief. The judge looked at Silas. Mr. Calder will be granted supervised visitation every 2 weeks. Consistency, sobriety, employment, stability, and housing progress will be evaluated at the 6-month review. Silas nodded, swallowing hard. Then Judge Sloan looked at Rowan. Mr. Kincaid, you are expected to support the children's relationship with their father when it is safe and constructive. Rowan answered steadily, Yes, Your Honor. The gavel struck, not like thunder, like a quiet door closing on chaos and opening another on careful hope. As people rose, Rowan caught Silas's eyes across the room. They didn't look like enemies. They looked like two men standing on opposite sides of the same truth. These girls deserved more than a fight. They deserved a future. The courthouse emptied slowly. Voices faded. Footsteps echoed down long corridors. Papers were folded and placed into briefcases, but no one in Rowan's chest felt finished. Ivy and June stood close to Dana, hands linked. June swung Rex gently by one arm, humming to herself. Ivy watched everything, faces, movements, silences, processing a world that had just decided something enormous about her life. Silas remained seated for a moment after the ruling. Rowan noticed. He hesitated, then crossed the room. They met near the window overlooking the city, separated only by air and unspoken emotion. I won't stand in the way, Rowan said quietly. As long as what you do keeps them safe. Silas nodded, eyes lowered. That's all I want. I lost time. I don't want to lose them. They shook hands, not as rivals, not as winners or losers, but as two men bound by the same responsibility. Across the room, Ivy watched. She didn't smile, but she didn't look afraid either. Outside, the city moved on. It always did. But for Ivy and June, something had shifted, not loudly, not dramatically. Something solid had formed beneath their feet. As they stepped into the sunlight, June looked up at Rowan. We're going home now. Rowan crouched to her level. Yes, we're going home. Ivy studied his face one last time, searching for cracks. Finding none, she nodded once and followed him out. That evening, the apartment felt warmer, not because the lights were brighter, but because no one was waiting for the floor to disappear beneath them. June ran ahead, kicking off her shoes, Rex tucked under her arm. I'm going to draw dinosaurs, she announced. Ivy moved more slowly. She set her backpack down carefully, as if afraid sudden movements might undo the day. Rowan watched without interrupting. Later after dinner, Ivy found him standing by the window. Rowan, she said. He turned. Yes, you didn't say you'd win, she said thoughtfully. You said you'd try. Rowan nodded. I meant it. Ivy considered this. Then very deliberately she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Just once. Just long enough. Then she stepped back, cheeks flushed as if embarrassed by her own bravery. June looked up from the table. Is hugging allowed? Rowan smiled softly. Only if you want it. June ran over and hugged him without hesitation. That night, Rowan tucked them in, leaving the door slightly open, as Ivy preferred. He sat on the floor until both girls were asleep. When he finally stood, the apartment no longer felt borrowed. It felt lived in. Late that night, Rowan stood alone on the balcony. The city lights stretched endlessly just as they had weeks ago. But everything was different now. In his hand, he held the black card holder. The obsidian black card still rested inside, untouched, powerful, unchanged. But folded carefully behind it was the paper. The note. I'm sorry. We took one bill to buy bread. We will pay you back. Ivy and June Rowan traced the letters with his thumb. The card had once defined him, access, privilege, control. The paper defined something else entirely. Integrity, courage, hope. Behind him a soft sound, June laughing in her sleep. Ivy murmuring something quiet and unintelligible, safe enough to dream out loud. Rowan slipped the note back into the card holder and closed it. Not as a reminder of what he owned, but of what he had been given. He whispered into the night, "Thank you for finding what I dropped and returning what I forgot." Inside, the lights glowed warm. A home, not built by wealth, but by a choice made by two 5-year-old girls who believed doing the right thing still mattered, and changed everything. Did this story move your soul? Share your feelings in the comments and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Click the end screen to watch another heartfelt video. See you in the next story.